This is Single Status. Hello, Single Status family. Welcome back. I'm so happy you're here. And today's episode is a continuation of the Dating Better series, little mini series I got going on. Three-parter, 3 episodes here. And last week, if you haven't listened, I would definitely go back and listen to that one first. It's on the 4 dating tendencies that could be negatively impacting your dating life. So definitely start there. And then today, we're going to talk about gaining confidence in who you are, because I believe that confidence is key when it comes to dating better. Okay, so before we jump into it though, I just want to remind you, I want to welcome you. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here. And if you don't already, follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Samantha Vigneau, Vigneau. The G is silent, yes. And if you are on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button and comment, like, share. I love hearing from you. So definitely leave feedback. Let me know your thoughts on the show. And if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could go to my page and leave me that 5-star rating, that would mean so much to me. And on Apple, you can also leave a review. If you go to my page and scroll all the way down, if you write a review, I would so much appreciate that. I love hearing your feedback. I love hearing your thoughts. And drop even suggestions on what you want to hear about in the future. I would love that. And also DM me whenever I'm available on Instagram. I'm super active, so hit me up there, okay? Okay. Sometimes I need just a deep breath after that spiel. Well, hey guys, I don't know if you know, I think I said in the last episode, but I batch record my content. So I'm in Orlando. I was just in cold Michigan a couple days ago, and I'm just ready for the warmth. I need to think about moving to Florida. My mom's probably no, but listen, the weather here, I just feel better, and it's definitely on my mind, guys, because I'm just sick of the winters. I'm sick of the cold winters. I love the seasons in Michigan, but it is those winters are just long, and seasonal depression is real. I really have to get myself together and prepare myself for the winter. But anyway, long story short, I'm happy to be in Orlando. I'm happy to be here, and I'm highly considering one day moving here. So just throwing it out there. And let me know if you're in Florida, let me know. I know a lot of the people I've met on social media already are in Florida. So anyway, why are we here? Dating Better series continued. We are talking about gaining confidence in who you are. And I want to start with a story. Okay. So being a little vulnerable here, I talked a lot in the first, few episodes about this situationship, I called it. And it was a little more than that. It got serious for a minute. So I dated a guy. So I have my ex-boyfriend who I was with for years. And then after we ended that relationship, I got in the dating scene, and then I met this guy. We became friends, and it kind of got a little, serious quickly. Friends turned into more than friends, and we were, deeply talking about life and about things, and things escalated so quick, and we bonded over our faith. So this was over a year ago at this point. And he ended up opening up to me about how he was battling with addiction. And I didn't have close experience with addiction before. I mean, there's people in my family, great grandparents and stuff like that battled with alcoholism and distant cousins that battled with addiction. But I never had it in my household or a close friend or something like that. So I never really knew about it. So I was naive to the subject in general. And so he opened up to me about his addiction, and how he was really determined to get sober again and to turn, back to God. And he was clear, I gave him faith to to get sober again. And so I found myself really wrapped up in helping him and supporting him on that journey. And I realized very quickly that is very heavy for anyone to take on. And I learned a lot, and that like addiction is something that needs to be handled between him and God and healthcare professionals. So, day by day, I just felt myself going backwards, spiritually, physically, I stopped working out. Like my mental health was struggling. My emotional health was struggling. And, I slowly just started like backpedaling. And at this point, I'm 29, turning 30, and I was really secure in who I was as a person at this point. I put a lot of work in my 20s to like discover who I am and be rooted in my faith. And it just felt like things were, I was backsliding. And, after a few months of me, continuing this relationship, and again, it was very quick because we only dated for like 3 months, I think. But it just escalated very quickly. And you don't really understand someone fully until about like 2 to 3 months in. Like that's a big thing I learned here. But I finally had a light bulb moment of, okay, this is way too heavy for me. It's pulling me back from who I am as a person. This situation is making me worse off as a person. And so that's how I knew I needed to distance myself from this relationship. So what I realized is this relationship was pulling me back from who I am as a person and from who God created me to be. And I knew at this point, and I was smart enough at this point to know that the person God has for me is the person that will actually bring out the best in me, that will bring me the peace and the space to be who I am, to be who Christ created me to be. And I knew that's how I knew I needed to remove myself from the situation. And if I hadn't taken the time to understand who I was as a person before this, though, I feel like I could have easily ended up staying in that situation for a while. And if I didn't know who I was, I could have lost my identity in that. And you might say, well, why would you even get yourself in that situation? Like you should have known. And guys, I'm never going to sit here and act like I'm perfect. I'm never going to sit here and act like I have everything figured out. Like I'm here to share my journey. I've been clear. Like I've made a lot of mistakes in the past and stuff like that. But what I will say is I know is a good man, and he is a great person at his core. It's just he's fighting the enemy. Like he's fighting this addiction that's so heavy that's something that he needs to do on his own between him and the Lord, and like I said, healthcare professionals. But anyway, like hindsight is the best teacher, and I learned so much about myself in this process, and I've learned to really embrace my mess, to embrace every experience that I've gone through. And that's how we learn. That's how we grow. And I found so much about like what I'm looking for in a person and what I'm not looking for in a person. But long story short, like the reason I'm saying this is because we need to know who we are. We need to be confident in who we are when we're dating. Because if we don't know who we are, we end up looking to other people to find identity, to find purpose. And it leads us to, insecure dating out of desperation, lowering our standards to stay in relationships, staying in toxic situations that aren't good for us. And it a lot of times it ends with, it comes down to we don't have an identity on our own, or we don't know who we are. And this is the main thing I want you to take away from this episode is the gift of singleness. Is you have the freedom and time to dedicate to finding out who you truly are at your core. And I know you might think it's weird that I'm pairing this with dating better, but truly, dating better comes down to knowing who you are and being confident in who you are, and it takes time to learn yourself. So knowing who you are, it leads to showing up more confidently on the dating scene. And you also have a better understanding of who you want in a partner. We talked about serial dating last time. And I have to imagine you're going to hundreds and 200 dates. Like, you can't understand what you're looking for when you're going on a tremendous amount of dates like that. So understanding who we are, it allows us to understand, okay, I know who I am, so I need to find someone that is aligned with me, who's aligned with my identity. And of course, a lot of people say like opposites attract and everything, and I do believe that. But ultimately, like, there's core things that we should align on, right? And so we're going to talk about that today. And listen, the most attractive quality in someone is someone who's confident in who they are. Like, when I see a guy who knows what he wants, knows who he is confident in his values and who he is as a person, I'm like, he could be mediocre looking, and I'm like, dang, like, he is attractive. Like, there is something attractive about confidence and security in who you are as a person, okay? So now the question is, okay, but how do I find out who I am? Like, because there was a time in my life, like, I had no clue who I was, especially in your 20s. Like, it's very normal. And I mean, at any age, like, it's not about age. Like, you could be in your 40s, 50s, 60s and still be like, who am I at the end of the day? And the reality is, I am just the type of person that I love to learn. I love to read self-help books. I love to improve. Like, we talked about it last time. Like, I always want to know, how can I improve? How can I be better? And so that coupled with my faith and submitting to the Lord, I have went through this process of discovering who I am over the years. And I didn't even realize I was kind of going through that. But so that's what I want to talk about today is, like, if you want to date better, how do we, find out who we are at our core? So we're going to go through the 3 tips to getting to know you, okay? And again, everything I share on the podcast, guys, I want you to know, like, this is not coming from a place of like, you need to do this, you need to do that, but like, I haven't done it myself. Like, everything I share here, I want you to know that I have deeply thought through it. I have deeply, reflected on it, and it has touched me personally and changed me personally. So I will never get up here and tell you to do something that I haven't done myself or haven't reflected on myself, okay? Okay, so 3 tips to getting to know you better. So again, this is one, get your pen out, get your paper out, hit pause if you need to, like, take time to reflect on you. Because again, this is part of the gift of singleness, guys. Like, you have time to discover who you are, free of having someone else like weigh in on that. And even if I know a lot of like people in relationships and married couples, listen to the show, and it's still important for you because, we're all growing and learning. So it's okay too, if you're in a relationship, to, take the time to understand who you are at your core, okay? So 3 tips to getting to know you. First tip, okay? Throw away the junk. Throw away the junk. I'm going to start with the scripture. So write this one down, okay? Psalm 139, verse 13. I have this messed up, so let me just say that one more time. Psalm 139, verse 13. I think that is, Carlos, if you want to check that really quick. Either way, we're going to have it on the screen, so it's good. But for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. So I'm pulling out this scripture because there was no mistake when God made you. I need you to know that. I need you to know that there was no mistake when God made you. The hair color he gave you, the eye color he gave you, the personality traits he gave you, the parents he gave you, the family he gave you. He specifically knit you together in your mother's womb, and there was no mistake when he made you. There is no one else on the planet that has your unique combination of gifts, abilities, physical, traits, everything. He perfectly made you, but because we live in a fallen world, thanks to Adam and Eve. No, I'm kidding. I'm like shaming Adam and Eve. Because we live in a fallen world, life happens, and we pick up a lot of junk along the way. So we get further and further away from who we are. Like as a baby, we're this innocent little like heavenly being. And I think that's why so often we're like attracted to babies and we just want them around because they're so perfect and they're so beautiful. And as we start growing up, we go through life and we experience, guilt and shame or heartbreak and hurt and trauma and in generational issues that are passed down or we take on these beliefs that maybe someone said about you. Maybe someone said you were weak or someone said you were stupid when you were little and now you've always believed this about yourself, or maybe you've dealt with insecurity issues or you have unhealthy habits that you don't know how to flee from. And the reason I'm saying this is because the junk is not you. The shame is not you. Your past mistakes, that is not you, okay? The bad habits, that is not you. That is not who God created you to be. And what happens is that junk clouds who we are at our core. It disconnects us from who we are at our core. It disconnects us from God. And then it's a lot of times why people isolate a lot. Like I remember I isolated myself a lot in my early 20s because I got so consumed with all of these things that weren't me, like the shame, the guilt, the anxiety, the pressure of just being human, and I started isolating, like my friends and family. They probably know, like, and I know they do know, like, yes, she was isolating herself, and I know my friends have told me that too, like. But it's because I was so weighed down on all these things, the junk, and it wasn't me. It's not who God created me to be, but so many of us deal with that. Okay, so how do we deal with this junk is the question, okay? So a spiritual mentor of mine in my early 20s, like I said, when I was really consumed with the junk, she told me, and shout out to Debbie, my dad's cousin, she told me to imagine yourself in a hot air balloon, okay? So imagine yourself in a hot air balloon and like take notes on this and do it later and close your eyes and do it. Or do it now, like close your eyes, imagine yourself in a hot air balloon and bring up the junk. So, okay, shame is coming up, okay? Shame is coming up. So I'm going to take a sandbag and I'm going to throw it out of the hot air balloon. And as I'm throwing out the junk, I'm going to take unforgiveness and I'm going to throw it out of the hot air balloon. I'm going to take guilt. I'm going to take bitterness up and I'm going to throw it out of the hot air balloon, everything that comes up. And with each time that I'm throwing a hot air balloon out, you're rising higher. You're rising higher. You're rising closer to God. You're rising closer to who you are. You're getting lighter. That heaviness, that weightiness of all the junk is no longer holding you down. So whenever you feel these things come up, like close your eyes and imagine yourself in this hot air balloon and throw the sandbags over the edge. Like, nope, bitterness is coming up. Nope, we're going to just throw that over and I'm going to go higher. Okay? So this is such a good like meditation to do whenever these things come up, because these things are not you. They're not of God. You and if you're a Christian, like, I a lot of times picture myself just handing these things over to Jesus. Like if I am really consumed in anxiety one day or worry from, whatever, I just say like, Lord, I'm handing this over to you. Like I'm not dealing with this. Like, Lord, I'm giving this to you. I surrender this to you. So you can literally picture yourself handing the junk over to Jesus. And with each time you're handing these things over, you are getting closer to Jesus and getting closer to getting closer to yourself, and even connecting, you're able to connect better with those around you as well, because you're getting closer to who you were created to be. Okay, and even a good with this too is I would even write down in your journal like declarations to replace the junk with. So whenever bitterness comes up, you could say, I am a child of God, or whenever shame comes up, like I am forgiven in Christ. And whenever insecurities come up, I am beautifully and wonderfully made. Whenever fear comes up, I am courageous. And so whenever you're throwing away this junk, then now you're training yourself to say these declarations in replace of the junk, okay? So number one, to gaining confidence in who you are and stepping into your true identity is throwing away the junk. And then part two is to replace the junk with declarations of who you truly are, okay? Truly are in Christ. Okay, that one was a mouthful. So second one, to really understanding who we are, to gaining confidence in who we are, so we can not only just date better. I know this is a dating better series, but literally this transforms your entire life, like these concepts. So number two is get to know yourself as you would someone you're falling in love with. Oh my gosh. I love this so much, because how often when we were falling in love with someone, we're so excited. We want to know everything about them, and we ask them so many questions. But think about it. How often do you really get to know yourself? How often do you take time to ask yourself these questions? Ask, who am I? Who am I really? Like, what brings me joy and what brings me peace? And because when you know yourself and you're confident in who you are, like it changes your relationships as well. It helps you be more at peace with yourself. And then in the future, when you are in a relationship, it will only, take the relationship to the next level when you're really, sturdy in your identity. So I have to read this quote because, I'm a note taker. I told you guys I have like a lot of journals and everything, and my brother makes fun of me for that. He always has. But listen, I like to write. I like to write down my thoughts. And I think it's good because it helps you. And I like to go back and read my journal. So as I was preparing this, I went back, and it was a journal entry from 2017. And I read this book. It's called Present Over Perfect with Shauna Naquest. I think you say her last name. And it's a good one. So I would go back and read it. But it's all about this lady who was like in a midlife season. She was married. She had a couple kids, but she really lost herself along the way. Okay, so I'm going to read this quote that I took from her book. It's, so I'm going to read it. I thought that my midlife season would be about pushing into a new future, and it is. I thought it would be about leaving behind the expectations and encumbrances of the past. It is. What I didn't know is that it would feel so much like recovering an essential self, not like discovering a new one. Hold close to your essential self. Get to know it the way you get to know everything in the world about someone you're in love with. The way you know your child, their every freckle and preference, and what cry means what. This self, this fragile, strong, creative, flip-flop and ponytail self. She's been there all along, but I left her behind, almost lost her when I started to believe that a constant motion would save me, that outrunning everything would keep me safe. So her thing was she just stayed in constant motion because she was scared to sit with herself, and she felt like she didn't really know herself. So she was always constantly moving, and present over perfect. It was her journey of getting present and getting to know her essential self. And I love how, because I've had that same experience, how she talks about this ponytail self, this essential self. And when you really start getting to know who you are and who you were created to be, and since I've really been submitting to the Lord's process and surrendering to him, I've realized God is so good because he has, without me even realizing, chopped away things that aren't really me that I picked up along the way. And he's brought me back to who I really was created to be. And I realize it is more like rediscovering who you were as a child. And of course, we learn and we have experiences along the way that we add to who we are. But a lot of the things I'm doing now, I was naturally gifted with as a child. Me having this podcast, I remember at my first communion, I got up and, I was on a mic at my first communion and I gave a whole speech unplanned. to all the people at my first communion. And I was always like very goofy and very funny, and I was very creative. Like I would make my cousins participate in movies. I made them do like a Scrooge movie, and I got really mad at everyone when they didn't participate. But I love like creating content and creating scenarios, and it's funny that now the work I'm doing, even on like TikTok and social media, it allows me to like be that goofy self again, but also like create. And it's funny, like as you start realizing who you really are, your core, it's like God gave you these gifts, and we like forget them along the way because we end up falling into like what the world wants us to be and everything. So anyway, I would definitely, okay, so I'm going to ask you, or I'm getting tongue-tied here. So ask yourself these questions. So write them down, pause if you need to, like take time to digest these questions. If you need to go on like a weekend retreat by yourself, or like lock yourself in a closet if you have kids, like do this, okay? So ask yourself these questions. Who is your ponytail self? Or if you're a man, like who's your dirty tennis shoe self, your Lego building self, you know, like what were you like as a child? Like what was that peace that you got as a child, or that pure joy that you had when you were a kid? And like, are you doing any of those things today? Like how can you slowly like incorporate some of those things into your life today? And I even see, like, I've always been a like people person too at my core. So even in my job, and even though I don't think like I'll be at my job forever, because I feel called to other things, but what I'm doing in my career, I'm working with people, and and that brings me joy, and that's natural to me, you know? So even like aligning your career with like what do you naturally kind of just gravitate towards? So the next question, when is the last time you felt the most at peace? And what were you doing? So examine what were you doing that brought you that peace, that brought you that joy. And again, start slowly incorporating those things into your life. It doesn't have to be this huge shift. It could just be, wow, I felt so at peace when I used to take time to take walks every day. And now I never do that. I never do that anymore. Start taking walks, start going outside. I had this friend that I was talking to recently about all this, about finding her purpose and more meaning and feeling more connected. And she was like, I love music. I've always loved music from a young age, but I never really did anything with it. And I told her, I'm like, well, just start small, you know, like it doesn't have to be this huge thing. And so she actually ended up signing up for piano lessons, and she's 31. And I'm sick and tired of people putting timelines on hobbies and new careers and even, yeah, like we're talking single status podcast, like getting married, having kids, like throw out the timeline. Why do we expect our kids? We tell them you can be whatever you want when you grow up, and we encourage them to have fun and be creative. But when we grow up, it's like we feel like we can't do any of those things anymore. Okay. So I thought it was so cool that she's taking piano lessons, and she's really like loving it, and she's having so much fun with it. And it doesn't even have to turn into anything. It just could bring you joy at the end of the day, you know? Or it could turn into something big. You never know. So next question, I would just ask yourself, like, what brings you joy? What makes you feel alive? And what are you naturally good at? And ask yourself even more questions, like go further. You can make up your own questions, but just take the time to know your essential self, who you are, your ponytail self, and really get to know yourself like you would someone you're falling in love with. Okay? Ask yourself the same questions you would someone you're falling in love with. Okay? And number 3, know what you believe in. Okay, so part of understanding who we are, being confident in who we are, and ultimately showing up to the dating scene better is knowing what we believe in. Like, ask yourself, what are your core values? Like, do you believe in God? Do you believe in Jesus? Like, what are your beliefs? Like, take time to search and know what you believe in. For me, faith is so important to me. It's where my identity lies. It's everything. And in dating, like I show up confidently to dating, knowing like I will not compromise that. So I need someone that's on the same page with me in that area, or I honestly won't even go on a date with someone. Like But it helps me have a compass, and so it's important to understand what are your core values and what do you believe in, okay? And it's not to say like we won't change throughout life. Like life is a journey and we're always changing and evolving. But yes, be rooted in what you believe and know what you believe. Because so often we go through life and we have no idea what we believe, but we have to sit and ask ourselves that question, okay? So summarize what we just talked about. 3 tips to getting to know you and being more confident in who you are so you can show up to the dating scene better. And honestly, this is just to like transform your life in general. It's not just about dating, let's be honest, at the end of the day. So 1, throw out the junk and replace the junk with declarations, okay? Declarations of who God says you are and who you really are created to be. And then 2, get to know yourself like you would someone you're falling in love with. And number 3, know what you believe in. Like take time to understand what you believe in at the end of the day. Okay. So if you want to date better, guys, it starts with you. It starts with knowing who you are. It starts with, figuring out who you are. And just like anything else, we need to take the time to build a relationship with ourselves and to seek really who God created you to be. Because I believe that each one of you have beautiful gifts and talents and purposes and assignments that God has for you in this season. And if you're listening to this episode, I really, really believe that there's a purpose that you're listening to this. Married, single, relationships, whatever stage you are, there's a purpose. You're here. And take the time to get to know you, to be confident in who you are. And I really believe it's going to transform your life. Okay. And guys, for anyone on the dating scene, it is so attractive when someone is confident, okay, in who they are as a person. So if you want to be more attractive, if you want to, attract even like higher quality, like people, guys, like get to know who you are. Take the time to get to know who you are, because I promise you will start attracting people that are on that same level as you, okay? Oh God. Well, I think I just talked for, it's been 30 minutes so far. So guys, I just really enjoyed my time with you. I really felt like this episode was a blessing. So I pray that it sinks in, and I pray that you even listen to it again if you need to. And hey, before we go, I already kind of forgot about the affirmations. Let's say our affirmations together if you're new here. I really believe in the power of our words, okay? So place your hand over your heart. And even close your eyes if you want to, if you're not driving. And repeat after me. I am not alone. I am loved and cherished by the Father. And I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. Whew. I felt that. I always feel that. I love those affirmations. It's so good. It's such a good reminder. Okay, guys, if you don't already, follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Samantha Vigneault, Vigneau. And again, you guys are awesome. And I have met so many great people from the show already. So DM me, let me know your thoughts on the show, introduce yourself. I would love that. And also if you're on Apple or Spotify, if you could just take a minute and take 30 seconds, honestly, go to my page and leave me that 5-star rating. I would really appreciate that. And even just scroll down on Apple, you could write a review, leave your feedback, let me know what your thoughts were on the show, what you learned, what you liked, what you want to see in the future. Definitely do that. And on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button, comment, share. And guys, our single fam needs us. So if you have a single friend, send them the show, because we need each other. Okay? All right, guys. I had such a good time with you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. I love you. And I will see you in 2 weeks.